Hello and welcome to tonight's broadcast of Tap Into the Truth. Broadcasting live from Roane County, Tennessee, this is your host, Tim Tapp. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Tonight, we're going to start with a little bit of the week in review. Hit over some of the things that we hadn't had an opportunity to talk about, things that have been overheard, things that have been said, things that have happened that are a little more important than the mainstream media may have led you to believe. Let's start out with the fact that the state of Wyoming, or at least their lawmakers currently, are proposing a bill to nullify new federal gun laws. Wyoming lawmakers have indeed proposed a new bill that, if passed, would completely nullify any federal restrictions on guns, threatening to jail federal agents attempting to confiscate guns, ammunition, magazines, or any kind of munitions. The bill, HB 104, states that any federal law which attempts to ban a semi-automatic firearm or to limit the size of a magazine of a firearm or other limitation on firearms in this state shall be unenforceable in Wyoming. Well, this is a positive first step for gun ownership rights and a strike towards the Second Amendment being left in place. But it is this for one simple reason. They specifically state semi-automatic weapons instead of using the left's current attempt, the so-called progressives' attempt to redefine, as they so often do, assault weapons. Again, we've demonstrated and we have shown in earlier broadcast of this show that there's already a ban on assault weapons. The definition of an assault weapon is a fully automatic weapon. Semi-automatics are not assault weapons. Stop letting the so-called progressives control the issue by controlling the definitions of the words we use. If we let them dictate how we talk about it, instead of using common sense, real, honest-to-goodness descriptions of what we're talking about and using definitions that everyone will understand, using this in a real conversation and in a real discussion where we're not trying to spin and control and lead the less informed to our side through misdirection, then this is an argument that they lose. What concerns me is so many of the mainstream media sources right now are reporting this, like with the upcoming, soon-to-be announced executive orders that will most likely be put in place for relatively quickly, I would imagine. The dog and pony show of bringing the NRA in and then bringing the Hollywood and video game folks in too, and all this other crap, completely useless and meaningless because it's not going to make any difference to the outcome of what these people want to do. They've known, well, I was going to say months ago, but quite honestly, the biggest part of this agenda was drawn up a long time ago, my friends. They've known for a long time exactly what it is they want to try to do. We, as the American people, have to stand up and not let it happen. I don't care which side of the argument that you're on when it comes to this thing. You cannot allow executive caveat to determine what becomes enforceable law. That's not how our government is set up. That we cannot allow this to continue to be used as an excuse. We do not have a dictator. We do not have an emperor. We are the United States of America, and we have a president. That is the office that is supposed to be being filled by the occupier. If he wants to redefine those roles, that is something we can't allow. No one should allow it. I don't care if you're on the right, on the left, in the middle, standing on a fence outside the freaking gate looking in. We can't let this continue. think I'll step back from the soapbox for just a second, and let's continue on with some of the other things that have taken place this week. We've also heard a great deal of hypocrisy, especially from the left, in regards to things from gun control all the way to the national debt ceiling. Seems like right now, almost every single Democratic leader, including the occupier, who are now just going on and on about Congress's duty to raise the limit on the national credit card, voted against doing it back in 2006. Their purpose was an effort to try and cut off funding to the troops in Iraq, hoping that that would force then-President George W. Bush to an early withdrawal. What then-Senator Barack Hussein Obama thought was good for President Bush and our troops is certainly more than good enough for him. Quite honestly, if we think about it, he said in a quote that it was a lack of leadership and would be unpatriotic to raise the debt ceiling then. They want to go on and on and on and talk about Congress's duty. Well, Congress's duty is to control spending, not to just continue to raise the debt limit. And we keep hearing threats towards Social Security and other entitlements. And what is actually being played here is more political theater. The left wants you to think that they're fighting for you if you depend on that, and it's the mean, nasty right that's trying to stop you. It's the mean, nasty, evil Republicans that are attacking you by not raising the debt ceiling. Well, here's the nasty little secret that anybody could take just a few seconds of time to research and find out. If the debt ceiling is not raised, America doesn't automatically default. America is still getting a few $billion a month in income. They're pulling in money from a lot of places. And the president, or in this case, the occupier, part of his job is to then determine what gets paid first. He gets to prioritize. He gets to shut down some unnecessary offices. Maybe even sell some federal land that they're not doing anything with, or at least lease some of it to further increase income. That would be a great way to increase some of the revenue without raising taxes, but they don't want to do that, do they? Social Security and our military payroll would not have to be touched at all. Take the time. Do the research yourself. If you don't believe me, check it for yourself. All I'm asking for you right now is for you not to believe what they tell you. Don't take it at face value. Find out for yourself. I've heard all kinds of talk this past week. People getting so angry that Social Security is even being called an entitlement from the government. Well, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but whether you're currently receiving or whether you're getting other SSI benefits other than just retirement, it has become an entitlement. It became when the instant they started spending your money on something else, because that's not your money you're getting back anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. It is a failed program. It was an experiment that was really an excuse to see how gullible the American people were going to be and how far they could start pushing towards ignoring the Constitution then just by getting the American people to buy into the premise. If it's for the children, or if it's for the elderly, or if it's for the retired, or if it's for somebody that we're supposed to feel sorry for, then suddenly public opinion gets swayed for it, and then it's okay to ignore the Constitution as long as it's for somebody. Ladies and gentlemen, it's called incrementalism, and they do it little by little, step by step, and they pray that you don't know what their end goal is, at least until it's too far down that slippery slope that they shoved us down for us to think that we can possibly get back up it. So we'll just have to accept it. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have to accept it. We can demand and should demand more. We need better leadership. We actually need some leadership as far as that goes. As far as I can tell, at least on our federal government level, the only real leadership are people that are pushed aside by the establishment in both parties. Social Security is an entitlement now. Like it or not, that's the reality. That's a big reason why I've said on multiple occasions I would be just as happy myself personally if they just went ahead, took all the money that they've collected for it, paid that back, and ended it. Because it's not being used the way it is, and it's going to continue to be used as an excuse to push more taxes on the American people. There's also hypocrisy on the fact that somehow these same Democrats believe that the president just has the right, by virtue of the 14th Amendment, to ignore Congress and raise the debt ceiling on his own. That is not what the 14th Amendment's for. We've also documented this on earlier broadcasts of this show. The 14th Amendment was one of the Reconstructionist amendments. It was designed specifically for making sure that we would decide what the legal definition of a citizen was. It was a way of including former slaves to become legally defined as citizens. And it was also designed to say point blank that Congress cannot ignore genuine public debt. But the only reason that was added on there was specifically to say the federal government of the United States of America did not recognize the Confederate States of America debt as being part of theirs. It says Congress doesn't have the right to ignore the public debt. It does not say that the president or whoever may be occupying the White House at any given point in time has the right to do jack crap. Period. It does not say that the current occupier or any other duly elected president of the United States ever had the authority to raise the debt ceiling on their own. What they have is Congress has to recognize the debts. Congress has to do what it feels is in the best interest of controlling the budget, which we haven't even had one in who knows how long. If Congress decides that its best course of action is to no longer raise the debt ceiling, no longer incur any further debts, then it's up to the occupier, in this case, or any other duly elected president who might be holding the office at the time, to prioritize. And if there's government shutdowns, then there will be government shutdowns. It does not say that anybody has the authority on their own to ignore Congress's authority on it. In fact, it says specifically it's Congress's job. Again, another not so clever but definitely not veiled attempt by the so-called progressives to push more and more